Patrick Condren, hi, and thank you for talking with MolksTVTalk.
Pleasure.
Patrick, you are currently chief political correspondent. Is that the best way to put it?
Only political correspondent.
Only for 7 Brisbane, but you haven't been doing that your whole career.
No.
Where'd you get your cadet start?
20 years ago at the illustrious publication called the Rockhampton Morning Bulletin, which was a terrific experience for 9 months, and then I signed up at the ABC. I was the only time I've ever been poached in my entire career. 21 years ago I was poached by the ABC in Rockhampton.
Yes.
And started a broadcast career that's carried me through to here.
Brilliant.
Did a couple of years in Rocky and then went down to Tassie and did a couple of years down there, 12 months with television news and 12 months with the 7:30 report.
Yes.
Then back to the Sunshine Coast with radio, and then did a whole lot of radio stuff, mixed in with a bit of TV stuff as well for the ABC. And that's the nature of the ABC, you can do a whole lot of stuff with a whole lot of different programs, and it keeps you fresh.
That's one way of looking at it. The other way is that their budget's really small and you have to do everything.
And it's a good experience. I mean, it's a terrific experience. You know, you because you're forced to do a whole lot of different things. It's like working in regional newspapers or regional television. You get to do a whole lot of different things, which makes you a more complete journo.
Yep.
And then in January '97, my wife and I went to the UK for 12 months and came home 6 years later, which was terrific. I got to work for the BBC for a program called the Today program on Radio 4, which is like the ABC's AM on steroids. It's a 3-hour program, 6 days a week. The production desk is manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. While I was there, I got to work on the funeral for Di's funeral, which was, you know, obviously very sad, but a terrific experience. And to be working with the calibre of the journos that the BBC hires is fantastic. We had 3 years in London and then 3 years in Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast, where I got to work, got back into television and worked for ITN up there. Career highlights while I was there. I secured the first TV interview with farmer Bobby Waugh, who was responsible for the foot and mouth outbreak. They'd sent a few English journos out to his farm to try and get him.
Shoot them all away?
And he shoot them all away, and I just happened to turn up at the right time, and he was walking across the road, and I jumped out of the car and I said, "G'day, Bobby," and he you know, Australian accent, he propped. Time to get the camera in his face, ask him a few questions, and off we went. So that was a terrific experience. I freelanced over there for the ABC and for the Australian newspaper. You know, various other bits and bobs, did some stuff for the Courier-Mail, so it was terrific. And then I came home at the back end of 2002 and got signed up as the political guy for Channel 7, and I've been there ever since. It's the longest I've ever had one job.
But
8.5 years.
But in those 8.5 years, as the Queensland senior political correspondent,
there's only one.
I know, but if you say senior, it sounds.
Senior makes me sound old.
You did say 20 years you've been working in the
21. Oh, I think I need a drink. I don't need coffee.
In the time that you've been working for 7 as a political correspondent, you will have seen. Well, you have worked through the reign of Beattie. And now into Bligh, and seen opposition leaders come and go.
Revolving door.
Well, one may say that. It's interesting. We, as viewers, tend to get what is a fairly sanitised version of politics, and you being at the coalface, get to see it a little less sanitised, or get to sanitise it for us.
Sanitise isn't the right word. You know, we cut out the crap and just give you the facts. Certainly, that's not at all. Sanitising makes it sound like we're, you know, turning it into something that is pure and you know, nicely washed and you know, without the crap. There is a whole lot of stuff to wade through, but I think anyone who watches certainly Channel 7 would see that there is, you know, no quarter is given from either side, and I take a little bit of pride in the fact that both sides think that I favour the other side. So that's good. You know, that means I'm being equally unfair to both sides. But sanitised isn't the right word. You've got to tell it. Sometimes you've got to tell it in the raw, and if it means that you've got to run a grab that's 12 seconds or 13 seconds or 14 seconds long to get the message across that a politician has made a complete and utter goose of themselves, I think that's a good thing. But we get to see we get to see it in the raw, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's fair.
Absolutely.
Just to reflect on, you said your time in radio, time in television. There's an immediacy with radio that hasn't existed with television, and I say hasn't because as we're now starting to move into a much shorter news cycle, it's becoming as fast. Not as fast, it's still editing, but faster. There's pros and cons to both. What would be your preference?
I don't have a preference. I have worked in radio, as you say, and the joy of radio in the past has been its immediacy. You know, whether it be you know, chasing people around in the bush, or you know, in Brisbane or in London, where things are happening immediately. As you say, you're on the phone and you're filing a story. Television has the impact of pictures. You know, and that's its benefit. Print, you can be more editorialising. So having worked across all three, I do not have a preference. I think they all have their own strengths. Certainly in terms of immediacy, television is catching up, and I think we saw that during the course of the floods, and certainly in the cyclones, and more recently again the Christchurch earthquake, where television networks are quickly going to rolling coverage. You know, if not on the day, certainly the next day, and you get that immediacy. And you've got television is a big beast, and it can be unwieldy. But you know, things are catching up. The technology is getting smaller. You know, when I go away with a cameraman nowadays on an away trip, we take a Mac, and we film it, and we put it into the Mac, and we download it, and it's there. So it's getting faster and faster and faster. And I think, you know, look at the technology you're using now. I mean, I think the day will come when, you know, they send me out with one of those. I'll be on a Zimmer frame by then. But you know, and that's the, you know, so television is catching up to radio in that respect. But I wouldn't have a preference. I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I think each of them has their strengths. The difficulty these days, I think, for people in my profession is getting the audience and keeping the audience, because there is so much media out there, whether it be online these days, you know, newspapers, radio, television. There's just so much out there attracting vying for people's attention, that you've got to be thinking outside the box. When I'm doing a story for the 6 o'clock news, for example, I've got to be thinking, how am I going to construct this so that it is interesting as well as imparting the facts to the viewers?
And that's fair, and we'll come back to talk a little bit more about the disaster porn of the past 3 months. You sat on the news desk. You read the news over summer for 7. Was that your first long stint doing that?
No, I've done it for the last 5 years.
Okay.
Thanks for watching.
No worries. Thanks for paying attention. Probably close to the point. It is summer, Patrick. Do you enjoy that as a preference? Like, is that my next step is definitely to move into weekend news reading and then try and get a weeknight gig? Do you want to do that, or you prefer to be out talking to humans?
I really enjoy it. It's something that initially challenged me.
Come on, this is your pitch to Mr. Meakin. He's going to watch this.
You know, in this industry, I've never planned ahead. You wait for doors to open, and then if you like what's on the other side, you walk through it. I really enjoy the summer news reading, but I equally enjoy the political reporting. You know, if I was guaranteed 6 weeks over summer and being allowed to do the political round during the year, I would be as happy as a pig in mud. But you know, there's other people that want to have a crack, and there's other people who, you know, for whatever reason, they get a crack and you might not get a go. So, but I've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it. But you know, nothing is set in stone in this industry. You could be the flavour of the month today, and then by tomorrow you're in the poo. But it's good fun. It's good fun. And I know you want to touch on this later, but it was particularly, regardless of the you know, disasters and the sorrow, it was particularly exciting to be part of it this year, because I got to be reading the news during the disasters, and then I got to be reporting on it, which for a political guy was completely out of the box. But having said that, it took me back to my original journalism, particularly for broadcasting, when I spent a lot of time chasing cyclones and the Marramine disaster. And when I was in London, I went to the Interlaken catastrophe where 19 kids were drowned. So that took me back to my journalism roots, I suppose, as opposed to the political reporting, and that was good.
Well, it's fair that you bring it up. Queensland's been through a pretty rough trot for the start of the year, and it's made for some excellent television. It's horrible in the course of...
Compelling.
Absolutely. I think that's probably the best way to think about it. Many people who have watched Seven or watched a lot of the feeds, even particularly because all of the networks were throwing to live press conferences through the floods and the cyclone, got to see the Premier doing a pretty good job. And then when it came to question time, inevitably you were probably the first person in more often than not. Do you find that, because you're a fairly tall guy, fairly broad-shouldered, you strike an imposing presence and a nice big deep, built for radio voice, do you find that is an edge for you to be able to get those first questions in? Because it's really about the question at that point. When it's press conference time, you want to hold the floor as long as you can.
Well, it depends what sort of environment you're in. Sometimes there are pressing issues that you'd like to get your questions in first.
Yep.
Sometimes it's better to sit back and see how the press conference is going before you decide whether or not to, ask what you hope is a killer question. I mean, you take it on a case-by-case basis, and you certainly, it depends what sort of mood you're in. I mean, if you're cranky, you're going to be fired up and asking all tough questions. And you take, for example, at Parliament recently, Jeff Wilson was asked about, as the new health minister, he had to come out and defend the Thursday Island Hospital. And he made a complete and utter mess of it. And, you sit there and you've got to be able to analyse what the politician's saying and ask the relevant question. I mean, just because you ask a question, it doesn't mean they're going to give you the whole answer.
Yes.
And Beattie was an arch specialist at this.
Yeah.
He would tell untruths by omitting the truth. So you've got to be aware of that and be able to ask relevant follow-up questions, which I don't think. In a lot of cases on radio these days, you're not getting those sorts of good current affairs follow-up questions, which I think is a bit of a shame. But in press conference environments, you've got to be on your game. You've got to be thinking, and be aware that they're going to be trying to dodge the question, and they might give you an answer that just it's
to placate you as much.
It's not necessarily the truth, but they're omitting the truth. They're omitting key aspects of it. So you've got to be able to follow up questions. But we're in a gallery environment. Everyone gets a go.
Yeah.
And people like Bly certainly aren't going to run away, because then you've got pictures of them running away from a press conference.
Yes.
So it's always good fun. It's always a bit of an intellectual challenge, which helps, I suppose.
It strikes me as a bit of a game, really. It's the press and the pollies playing the news.
Some of them, both the press and the pollies take it a bit too seriously. But call it a game if you like. Yeah. It's a serious game. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that with respect.
Yeah.
But it is and you can see sometimes we see this creep into the edits that make it to air. The sort of wry smiles or the nicely curly questions that play in, and their responses to that I think are as important for you guys as they are for us as viewers to see some of the humanity.
It's a way of telling the story.
Yeah.
Whatever the best way of telling that story of the day is.
What's the camaraderie like within the press gallery in Queensland?
Well, I see a lot of my gallery colleagues more than I see my colleagues from Channel 7 most. I'd take, for example, this week a parliamentary sitting week. I see more of them than I do of the guys I work with up at Channel 7. So there's a friendly rivalry.
Yep.
The name of the game... the Courier Mail doesn't have much competition because it's the only newspaper in town, whereas my direct competitor is Channel 9, where, battling it out for the ratings each night.
Yes.
So there's a friendly rivalry between myself and Spencer Jolly. And then, you got Kathy at Channel 10 and Jessica at the ABC. So, we are, competing for a story, and, if we get a scoop, so much the better.